Hi, welcome to this channel. My name is Venkatesh Akula. In this today's session, we are going to talk about the differences between Git and GitHub. Generally, when we talk about Git is something to manage your code and its version history in your local machine, whereas in GitHub, it's a website or a platform where you manage your code along with your peers and deploy the code using CI/CD and then review. There are a lot of features out there in the GitHub. So in simple words, Git is in your local machine, GitHub is a website. So now, if I put it in a simple example, we have something called Word document. If you are working alone on your project, you can type something and then tomorrow you come back and then you can review what you have written in your Word document and then you can make changes and save it and you can improvise like that. Whereas in GitHub is you try uploading this Word document into cloud so that your team members also can start working parallelly into it and then update accordingly. It's exactly like that. So now these Git and GitHub are two names, two different things, and most devs little bit confused when newbies or college grads come out. So in this video, we'll try to explain what the difference between Git and GitHub. So how did we get here in the first place? So Git was one, actually it is developed by Linus, one of the Linux creator. So what happens is there is something called Bitkeeper where they used to uh, this version control. Bitkeeper is a version control where they used to maintain their code. There was a little conflict between the billing during that time. This guy thought, okay, let me create my own Git version. So within 10 days, he started working and then he launched his first version of Git. So which is fast, distributed, and open source, which means free. And GitHub is something that four developers who started working together to launch a platform, social platform for the code. Generally, we humans have Facebook and Instagram to show, to put our photos, images, videos out there, and then so that other can see and comment like that. For code and repositories, we have something called GitHub. It's simple in that way. So this guy called the Preston Werner and then Chris Vandert and PJ Heath, what these guys did is they started working on this project called GitHub. That's how it came up, and then after 10 years, it got acquired by Microsoft for $7.5 billion. And after that, even after acquiring, also they maintained it as independent and open source, free for all. And now this GitHub also maintained by the community, meaning anybody can contribute to this GitHub. Currently, it's a market leader. It is having over 100 million users across the world. I can say 90% of the world developers are using GitHub only. And now let's look at what exactly is Git. Git is actually a open source version control system. Earlier, you might have heard that there is something called SVN, and there is Git for controlling the version of the code that you have written. It's completely sits on your system and it doesn't require any internet. So what it's actually happens is Git takes snapshots of your code at each commit. Whenever you do commit, it just saves it. That's what snapshot meaning. And then there is something called branching and merging. Branching is something, there are different branches. Main branch, which is your main code, sits there, and nobody pushes the code into main branch. It's basically the lead of the project will take care of main. And there is something called dev branch and stage branch. Initially, all the developers would work on the dev branch, and then once everything is fine, they will push the code to stage, and then if everything testers confirm that code is working as expected, they'll push it to the main branch. There are different stages for each organization follows, but generally dev stage and production, which means main. So there is something called merge, meaning when a developer writes some code and then they try to push into GitHub, uh, initially in Git, and then when they push it to GitHub, they will merge the code, and then that's what it's mean here. Create a parallel timeline branches for features, merge them back when they are ready. Zero risk to maintain the code. Yeah, that's what he mean. And then local first, the entire history lives on your disk, which means local system, full speed, works offline, no server dependency, and it is distributed. So the key commands that are required or generally people work with a Git is first is git init. Git init something what it happens when it actually work in CLI, by the way. So command line interface, what I mean when I say CLI. So when we say that git init, what it does is it looks into all the files that are there in your repository. It checks everything and it keeps tracking now. And then when you click on the git add, what it does is it stages all your changes there. And the next one is when you save a snapshot, what you're gonna do is git commit -m the feature that you are working on in the particular project. And then so the timeline, when we say that where you are going to push your code, is it dev environment or stage environment or any other environment, basically the branching that we discussed earlier. So we are going to add that as a feature so that the lead developer would verify and then update. And then finally, to check the history, what has done, what has been updated, what has been saved, you use this git log. Let's look into what is GitHub, the platform that we are talking about. For humans, we have Facebook and Instagram. For code and the repositories, we have GitHub. There are a lot more platforms like this, like GitLab also there. We'll talk about more on that in some time now. So it's a cloud-based hosted service that stored the Git repositories and add collaboration superpowers on top of it. Meaning, so tomorrow you may lose your laptop and the entire code you written may lost. But when you push that code to GitHub, it will be there forever. And then you can collaborate with your other team members, and then where they can write code, raise a PR, pull request, push request, and then uh, they'll review the code and then comment if there is something needs to be updated, and then there would be approval process all there. And then you can also, there is something called in GitHub called project management. We can track the issues that are out there. You can assign bugs directly, tasks to the respective developer. And last, which is la this is not the last one. There are many features out there. There is something called CI/CD GitHub Actions, where you can directly automate your tests and build. When a developer push the code, you can directly deploy it, just run it, deploy it directly. And the next key differences, if we put down Git versus GitHub, the first thing is Git is a software that works on CLI, command line interface, whereas in GitHub is a platform or a service that anybody can use across the world. But whereas in Git is permitted to your local machine, and it runs on your local machine, whereas in GitHub works on internet cloud. Basically, it's a version control, tracks files history. It's a repository hosting and collaboration. The code would be hosted on on this website, and then you can collaborate with other developers as well. It works fully offline, and GitHub requires the internet connection. And the Git is free and open source. GP is general public license, if I remember correctly, and GPL meaning that, and this is a free tier. There are some paid plans, meaning If you want to save your code on GitHub, that is open for everyone. Anybody can see and contribute. That is free. If there are some private repositories as well, which is maintained by the organizations, if in that case you may have to pay a little bit, and that is maintained by Microsoft, whereas Git is open source. And Git doesn't have any UI. It completely runs on command line. GitHub is having fully web UI, and also it is having mobile app as well. It doesn't require any login accounts to work on the Git, whereas in GitHub have this account-based social features. So Git can work without GitHub, and GitHub cannot exist without Git. It's basically GitHub is built on top of Git, and how it work together. Now this is something that the real workflows happens. So when you hit that Git init, it usually tracks everything. Whereas in GitHub, what it does is when you clone when you use this command git clone followed by the URL of a specific GitHub repository, that's where it starts. The magic starts. It just download the code that is out there on the GitHub, and you start writing code, and then you add the git commit, git add, and then git commit. What it does is you build all the features, you save the snapshots in your local machine. Until this point, no internet required. It's just there until the stage point on your machine. And then when you push the code to origin main, you are going to push the code from your local machine to the GitHub, where all your code that you have written would be shared in the GitHub. So here, upload all your local commits to GitHub. Now they are in the cloud. Now you can share it with other team members, and backed up. It's saved there. And then open pull request on GitHub. So when you push the code, you raise it as a pull request so that the other developer or a senior developer or team lead, they would review your code, and if there is anything, they would send back to rework on it. If there is any bug, they will ask you to fix and then push the code again and raise the PR again. That's how it works. And then finally they will merge it, and then merge the code to the dev branch or the stage branch, and immediately what happens is GitHub action fires up. So what it does is it runs the test first and then deploys the changes automatically, and the code is live. You can see the changes that you built. And the next one is git pull. So now the latest code, the other person or the other team members out there, they can start working on to work on it. What they do is they will pull the latest changes to their local, and then they'll start working on it. So some of the features that need to be known when we are working with the Git and GitHub is that there is something called staging area, which is when you are working on your local machine, and there is something called rebase when there is a conflict between two or more developers deployed the code at the same time. This concept helps. And then there is something called stash pull request we already discussed, and we discussed about the GitHub actions, which means CI/CD pipelines, which is written with YAML, and then it automatically runs and deploys your code. And there is something also called Copilot. It's a basically like ChatGPT uh, and the Claude, where it suggests what you write while you are writing the code in your editor, like VS Code that we recently installed in the local machine. That's how where it helps. And then there is something called GitHub pages. Let's say GitHub pages, meaning when you are when you want to build your portfolio, saying I am Venkatesh, I am a AI engineer, and I have over 10 plus years experience in IT industry. If I want to create my own website on that, that is called static website. For that, if I written some code and then I put it on the GitHub, there is one option called GitHub pages where you directly publish it and then share that URL to any people so that they can look into your portfolio. And there is other thing called open source ecosystem, where uh, they write code for the public so that anybody can use and work in their respective projects. That's called open source ecosystem. It's free for everyone. And there are some common misconception in the Git versus GitHub. The first thing is GitHub is just a backup service for code. No, no, it's more than that. It's fully developer platform, uh, project management, CI/CD, security scanning. Okay, let me explain the security scanning. So when a developer try to written some code and then pushed it to GitHub, raised a PR, and then the senior developer or the team lead, what they have done is there is something called, there are many code review tools out there. One of the tool that we are using is Gemini Code Reviewer. What it does is it just scans through what you have written. If there is any malicious code, it just highlights, and then it will stops. It won't allow you to deploy the I mean merge the code into the respective branch. So that time what happens is it will send back to the respective developer. They will start pre-work on it. And there is something called package registry and then wiki pages where you understand what the specific basically like .md file where it talks about what you have written, how it helps to others, that kind of thing. Backup is one of the least thing you can say for the GitHub. And the next one, you need GitHub to use the Git. Absolutely wrong. Git works completely offline. Many companies host their own Git servers. There are other GitHub providers, kind of services that GitHub provides, like GitLab, Gitia, self-hosted, Bitbucket, all those things are there. GitHub is just an optional. You can use many more things. The underlying thing which is very important is Git. And the next one is Git is too hard to learn. No. So 90% of daily, generally when you're working with Git and GitHub, you hardly use Git. You initialize what is written and then you add everything to the local repository and then you commit it to the staging and then you push it and then thereafter you pull the code. And the advanced Git commands and GitHub commands that are used by the senior developers and the lead developers all the time. Majority of Git and GitHub would be done by these 5 commands only. And the next thing is GitHub owns Git and controls it. Absolutely not. Git is open source and GitHub is owned by the Microsoft. What else is out there? So there are many Git hosting alternatives. One is GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure DevOps. This is completely owned by the Microsoft. There is something called Gitia and SourceHerd. You like 90% of the software hosting. Uh, all the code repositories are in GitHub, and this GitLab is basically majority uh, mainly used for this DevOps purpose only. And other enterprise level companies also uses this GitLab heavily. And Git, there are some other options there. There is something called GitHub Desktop and Git Kraken. Some Git GUI clients are also there, but yeah, that is not required, I can say. And the next one, this is a wrap up, I can say, the one line summary. Git is a technology that tracks your code history, and GitHub is a platform where you share and collaborate and build the code with multiple developers. And Git, remember this, it's a free and open source, run on your machine, version control engine, works without internet, made by Linus. And GitHub is cloud platform, needs Git underneath. Without Git, it won't work at all. And the collaboration CI/CD, you can use that for GitHub Actions for deploying your code owned by Microsoft. Yeah, that's it. In the next class, we are going to discuss about basic commands that we are going to use in Git and GitHub. I'll show you that, and also I'll show you how to create your account in GitHub. If you have any questions, feel free to uh, text ping in uh, comment section, I'll try to address them. Thank you so much. Bye for now.